Chat came up on the sidebar. Not good. Let's try I did my live stream earlier for Testaments, the Handmaid's Tale spin-off. I'm doing the book reading right now, but the series is coming out this week, Wednesday the 8th, I believe. So I am getting ready for that. I also did my live stream reading of chapters 3 and 4 of Testaments. And I tried to do a recording of a reaction for Solo Leveling. Didn't work so well. I got to the end, pressed the record button for it to stop recording, and it just starts circling and circling and circling and circling. And the clock started back over from 0. But it did not stop. And I thought, well, maybe I accidentally double-clicked or something. And I go and check. There's no video in my videos folder where it's supposed to load. My kid's with me. My kid does the reactions for Solo Leveling with me. But they just don't show their face. And yeah, I messed with a bunch of things. I still couldn't find it. I still couldn't get the record cycling to stop. So eventually I closed it. I tried clicking a couple other things, nothing worked. It still was cycling. It got almost 2 minutes in and it still was doing that. So I closed it, hoping, because I think if you do it MKV style videos, that it will still leave a file there if something happens and your internet crashes or something like that, or something happens to stop the recording or whatever. But no, there's nothing there, so I've lost that whole recording. It's very upsetting, and I don't think I'm going to do it again, so that episode will be missing from my reactions, which sucks. I still plan to try to check and see if there's, like, I don't know, some saved temp file somewhere on my computer, but I suspect that there's no chance. We're almost ready for Deadloch. Season 2, Episode 3 after watch. Let's get to it. Alright. right, hello everyone. This is Venus Brown. I am back with another live after watch of Deadloch Season 2 for Episode 3, which I think is called The Boys. The Boys. Okay, gist of the episode are the suspective Croc theme park team, or maybe these land disputers connected with Don Darrell's murders, with all these limbs showing up at different crocodile spots. By the end, it's not looking good. Like, we don't really have any real answers. And then it looks like the weapon used to dismember poor Don Darrell, the apparent racist and asshole, is found on Eddie's dad's property. Not good. I suspect it was planted there, but just not a good thing. Okay, so I am going to go ahead. I'm going to play a clip. I think it's a few minutes long. It doesn't have a time on it. It's one of those Instagram videos, which I really hate doing Instagram and Facebook videos. I don't like doing the short, long up and down format. I prefer the wide, horizontal format. But anyway, there's not really a lot available, so I'm going to show this clip. It's from, I think, the cast members while they're filming this season. I'll show that. Then I'm going to go through kind of just some of the stuff that happened in the episode, and then after that we'll go ahead and we'll do my favorites and least favorites and all of that. So let's go ahead. We're going to go to... First, I'm going to pull up the video.
Come with me for a peek behind the scenes.
That started, and I didn't want it to start. Well, just remember it said, come with me behind... for a peek behind the scenes. Okay, so that was the beginning of it. Let me go to the view so that you can actually see this. And it looks like I need to actually turn this on. It should be this one. Done. All right. So it needs to be shrunk up a bit. I'm not going to shrink it up that much. Let's do that. There we go. All right.
Darwin on Deadloch. Start the day with a bit of ice in my coffee. Have to go get my own ice out of a fridge, but it's about a 30-second drive to set, which is actually fantastic. Do a bit of shopping. Local fishing shirts are out. Might get a new one. Jimmy's showing us that I'll be able to do the shot on the bike, so a bit of previous from stunts there. Here comes the star, Eddie Redcliffe. Eddie fucking Redcliffe, just tearing it up on the set. The kids actually listening to Tupac in their trailer. And we're in the AD truck. I don't know why I came in here. I just wanted to show you around. Here are some of the great ADs. But actually, if you kind of take a step in, Shayla's quite organised. Zoe's got a sugar high. And I think Lewis, I don't really know what's going on in his locker. Also don't actually know what phone he's using. Apparently his phone is somebody. Bit of merch is creeping into set. And we've actually got a big day, so I've actually got a big job to do. We're doing like the end of Ep6 on day 4 of the shoot, which is crazy. The crew have given up in Fashions of the Field. They're now sponsored by beer and cigarettes. Wing Blues, shout out. Actually, here we are shooting a little two-hander with Eddie and Dulcie, and Millie's driving all the way back to Brisbane. It's about a 5-day drive with Leo's vehicle. Someone's actually got the same shoes as me. I never thought they'd make 2 pairs of these awful shoes. About to do a little stunt with these Fruit Loops. And yeah, Eddie's feet are just getting real fucking dirty out here. And I'm just trying to cool off. The Chuck scarf has become a new favourite of the crew. Everyone's kind of got their own variation of fashion here and how they're doing it. Whatever it is to stay cool, you just got to do it. This is a shot of the boys and a Slurpee balancing. Look at the precision there. I was quite impressed by this, and everyone's off to the Slurpee machine thanks to the Kates. Here comes one of our showrunners, Kate, with her daughter Millie, just doesn't care about the weather. Art department unfortunately have to sweep away the mud. Here I am pre-vising the car stunt chase scene with miniature cars. The bats have arrived, which means it's time for the night shoot. Picked up that shirt, love it. Eddie loves it too. Dinner time. And into the night shoot we go. I like crew innovation. Here's a great sound use of something they can sit on and carry. Actually, here I am doing some work, big stunt chase scene. Pat did most of her own stunts. And the rain machine came out in Darwin, which is a whole other story. And then, some of the crew, they know how to prepare for this. I've gone through my week, making sure I'm happy with everything, and I'm cracking open a beer with my pet frog, Mango.
Okay, I muted it because, again, I didn't have it on a separate audio, so it's going to pick up all the audio from my desktop, and I didn't want it having reverb and being massively loud, so I muted myself. But yeah, I wanted to show you that. I sometimes like some of the behind the scenes stuff and seeing what goes on when they're casting and stuff like that. But anyway, let's go ahead to live scene. Yeah, okay, so let's see what happened. This is it's mostly in order. I think every once in a while there's something that's not in order. Dulcie and Eddie, at the very beginning, they get rescued. Dulcie gets rescued from the person that I thought was trying to get her. I thought they were going to attack her or try to get her attacked, and then I thought the crocodile was going to attack the other person, but apparently it was one of the employees that was actually trying to help Dulcie. Nobody got attacked, but it definitely shook Dulcie a lot. And I don't know though, it seemed like the pants and shoes that we saw at the end of the previous episode, where that attack was getting ready to happen, were not the same as the pants and shoes that were on her. And I tried to look, but I did not go back and look at the end of the previous episode. I didn't think that the person was wearing jeans, but they might have been. It's possible. But it looked like on there that she was wearing jeans and she was wearing tennis shoes. So at least if the person at the end of the previous episode was wearing jeans, then that tracks. But I thought maybe they were wearing Dockers or something like that. Anyway, Eddie gets saved a little bit later. The two of the ladies that were working over there, they hear her banging on the freaking door, and they go and find out what the hell's going on. Why are you stuck? Why are you in this freezer? And she's like, I've been here and I'm just freezing my twat off. Well, she doesn't say twat, but she says something just as good. So yeah, gosh, and okay, so yeah, they're both saved. And then a little later, Eddie goes and kind of collects his two mentees. I think she calls them Mentos. So she collects her two Mentos, Leo and Abby. And I swear, I think that one scene where they kind of meet each other, they sit down, and Eddie says a couple things about what they're doing and about Abby's previous relationship and all this other stuff. It seemed to me like there was some jealousy going on between the two of them. I don't know if I was just seeing things, but that's what it looked like to me. It was some sort of jealousy going on. All right. And then after that near crocodile miss or near crocodile hit, whatever you want to call it, Dulcie is on edge. She is freaking out a little bit, but she's not opening up to anybody. She's not telling anybody what happened. So they just can tell she's on edge, but they don't know what the fuck is up. And so Eddie starts hounding her about, like, what did you not sleep very well? Was it the sex? Was it no sex? Was it sex? Like, just, Eddie is Eddie. This is how Eddie is. Okay, and then we start getting the questions about, could this possibly, rather than being team, the crocodile team or whatever, doing some conspiratorial shit, could it be some territorial thing? And at first Eddie brings up the possibility that the people that are closest to them might be in some territorial dispute, and that might be what it is. And then later on down the road, there's somebody else that it turns out they're in a territorial dispute with. And so then they wonder, could it be that? But it looks like by the end, they pretty much verify that's just not likely. So, anyway. Then we find out from Abby, because Abby is trying to do her forensic stuff now, that something's off with these cuts. The cut limbs don't seem to be cut by a knife like the report said. There's something different about it, so she says it looks like it's a motorized cut. And when she said that, I was thinking, because she said the cut is too clean, and so I was thinking like something that you would have in surgical procedures when you have to cut through bone or something like that. But they were not necessarily talking about that. I think they were talking about any kind of motorized cutting device. Yeah, anyway. Oh, yeah. And they're also looking for more body parts because the limbs that they're getting aren't telling them enough. And Abby's like, I really need a torso. If you really want to know why this guy died, I need something more substantial. I need a torso so I can figure it out. And what do you know? What do they find? Like, Eddie goes and asks this a law enforcement officer to look into a certain place. Says he has a warrant. Says she has a warrant. I keep saying he. I don't know why I do that. Eddie presents as a girl. Eddie is a little more on the masculine side, but Eddie presents as a girl. So I don't know why I keep doing that. But anyway, she tells him to go and look this up, says that she has a warrant, which she obviously does not. But he does go and look, and he does find this torso and says that he's so freaked out he ends up leaving it with the park ranger girl, but takes off. And she's like, yeah, he was so freaked out that he looked through his social media for 10 minutes and then went to his next job. So he wasn't really freaked out, or at least I would disagree that he is that freaked out. Anyway, just hold on. My handwriting sometimes is a bit much to read. Okay, so yeah, throughout the episode, we find these body parts. Like I said, Abby figured out that it's not cut by a knife; it was cut by some motorized weapon, motorized cutting device. and that these parts have been kind of dropped off at these various crocodile eating spots. Yet, none of them have been eaten. And this is something that comes up a little later, that these all were dropped off at crocodiles' eating spots, but none of the crocodiles were eating these limbs. And anyway, Eddie continues to do her own investigation. Like I said, she had that cop do what he was doing. She's trying to figure out stuff with her dad. And Dulcie doesn't seem to think that that has anything to do with their investigation, and that she is wasting time dealing with her dad's stuff. But I think they are definitely interrelated. See, the problem with my writing here is that I mashed a bunch of stuff together, so it's hard to tell where one thing starts and another thing stops. Yeah, I think I got the point across, though. Eddie's doing her own thing. And then they show Kath with this book, and they seem to focus on the book. So I said, what is with this book? Because they definitely seem to focus on the book a pretty significant amount and like zoomed in on it. And then when she was looking at, when she was signing it out and looking at the list of people that signed out, they focused on the sign out list, and she mentioned one of the people that had checked it out previously. So I'm feeling like this book is going to come back in some way. I don't know how, but I think it is, because otherwise I don't think they would have been focusing on that book so much. And what was the name of the book? Breathless Falls by Sophie somebody. So I thought that might have something to do with something, because the way they focused on the cover. There's also the picture of the waterfall on the book too. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it either. But Jason Wade, still superficial as ever, and Dulcie goes to start talking to him, talking to all his co-workers and everything, or his employees. And he, again, acts like he doesn't even, doesn't recognize her, acts like she's just somebody there to get a signature or whatever, but... yeah, I think that's bullshit. I think he's intentionally doing that. I think he's been intentionally doing it all along. And because he's an ass, and because I think he is covering something up, whether it has anything to do with these murders or not, I think he's covering something up, and I think that's why he's doing this. So he wants to save his ass. He wants to cover his ass. Let's see. I really need to put this on a bigger sheet of paper, or spread it out further. Good Lord. It also might help if my pen always worked like it's supposed to. Oh. Okay, so the kids, they start out and they want to be in this fishing thing. Supposed to be prizes. There's supposed to be a big prize, and there's supposed to be littler prizes. The littler prizes are nothing that they give a shit about. They don't want it. They're like, no, we need money. We want to take care of stuff. We want to pay for things. The big prize is money, but the little prize isn't. And then they try to enroll, and she says that her cousin, I think it was Marv or Mav or something like that, said that he was 18, and she said she was 25. This little girl, Cherry, said she was 25, and they didn't care. They did not sign them up. So yeah, they couldn't join in on the fishing thing. So they go on a little expedition. after explaining all of that to one of the other police ladies, they go on this little expedition, and they end up seeing the sign for a restricted area. See if I can see what it says. Oh, I didn't write what it said. So it was like a restricted alien area. The stories are that there's these extraterrestrials and they'll suck out your brains and stuff like that. But I don't think that it's anything like that, but I suspect that those stories are for a reason. And that reason is probably something they shouldn't be fucking getting their nose into, because they could end up getting hurt or killed or who knows what. I think it's unsafe, and they just freaking traipsed off into the restricted area because they're kids. I mean, I did a lot of crazy shit when I was a kid that I shouldn't have been doing. I went into a lot of places that I knew were supposed to be off limits, but I went there anyway. It's just, kids are curious. They want to explore, they want to learn, and some of how they learn is by doing stupid, crazy shit that isn't exactly safe, and hopefully learning from those experiences. I suspect that this is not going to turn out well. I just hope they don't get hurt or killed. Yeah, I hope they don't get hurt or killed, but I think something bad's gonna happen. They might be a little traumatized or something. Who knows? Am I at the end? I am. Okay, so the end. Dulcie is left a little present because because Leo decides that Leo decides that they are going to help sort through this trash, trying to find one of the motorized blades or machines or something that might have been involved with the dismemberment. And she does not find that. She finds something else. I thought they had found a blade, but they did not find a blade. We see later on Dulcie sitting at her desk, and there is a gun that is rusted out on her desk, and she starts pulling it apart and calls it in and finds out that this gun has 2 bullets missing. She calls it in and finds out that this gun belonged to Detective Mike Bushman, which I believe is Eddie's Bushy. Detective Bushy. So I think Dulcie is gonna have to tell Eddie, and I don't think she's gonna be particularly. I think this is gonna be hard. I think it's gonna be a hard thing to bring up, but she'll do it. She'll do it, and Eddie will do what Eddie does and act tough and act like things are okay when really things are not. And I know that Dulcie had talked to the was it Macaulay Culkin? I don't think that's who. I think it was like oh my god, it was something like that. It was like the name was really close, but it wasn't quite Macaulay Culkin. So I think she had talked to him about Eddie needing a therapist or whatever, a puppet therapy, I think. But I haven't heard back yet as to if they're going to set that up or if they got it started or anything. But yeah. Then, the very end, Eddie goes to, I wonder, it doesn't matter. Eddie goes to her dad's property to find out what the fuck's going on at her dad's property, and the police officer that she had digging around is there, and indicates that he had found something and points to what he found, and it was this it was like this dug up area. But when I looked at it, I was like, what are they even showing us? Like, what is that? Like, to me, I was like, I didn't understand what they were showing us, but it was just area that had been dug up and like something had been buried, and I didn't like, I just didn't pick up on it until the second time around. So yeah, they're digging through the dirt, trying to figure out what it is, and pull out a chainsaw, motorized cutting weapon that could have been used for dismembering something. And like I said, I do not think that her dad actually put that there. I think it was planted. I know people with old habits, like old habits die hard and everything. I get that. But he just got out of jail. He just got out of jail, and like doing one of the exact same things that you were doing when you got busted is a great way to end your ass right back in jail. And I don't foresee somebody being that crazily stupid to like intentionally doing the exact same thing that you were doing, that you ended up when you ended up getting locked up. And I don't know if probation is like that. I don't know if the laws are like that in Australia, but I know that when you get out of jail here, they can freaking lock your ass back up for anything. But if you are caught doing the same kind of illegal shit that you already got busted for, or something that is involved with what you got busted for, you're probably going back in, and you're probably going to be in there for a while. So I just find it hard to believe, and I do think he's being set up. Let's see. All right, so that's kind of like my rundown of most of what happened in the episode. Now we're going to go to my favorites, least favorites, things of that nature. My favorite scene was Eddie noticing Mickey in a what appears to me to be a romantic way, and especially right after that scene, he goes and talks to Dulcie and starts fishing for ideas of how they flirt with each other, like trying to get tips of how to flirt with girls. And then later on, we see this interaction between Eddie and Mickey, and it definitely seems like not necessarily that Mickey's into it or anything, but definitely that there is something going on, and that Eddie is like interested, and it looked like Dulcie picked up on it too. So that was amusing. That cracked me up. That was my favorite scene. My worst favorite scene, when Eddie's dad drops off all that junk and they need to look through it. One of the cops offers to go through the junk, to sift through it, to try to find what they were looking for. And right after she said she was going to do that, then she starts complaining of a slip disc. And yeah, that bugged me. Like, it almost seemed intentional. But at the same time, it could have not been intentional. I have back problems. I know that you can just turn the wrong way and all of a sudden your back is like killing you and you don't feel like you can do anything. I know that happens. It's just the way that the facial expressions she had made it seem like almost intentional. Like, oh yeah, I'll help with this. And then right after she says she'll help with this, then she's saying that she's got these back problems, and then every time we see her, she's going on about her back problems. So maybe exaggerating, but maybe not. It may be legitimate. Like I said, I have back problems. I know they can sneak up on you and they can just freaking kill you for the rest of the day. So it is possible that it was legitimate, But part of me feels like maybe she was intentionally trying to get out of it. And right after that happened, Leo shows up and says, "Oh, do you want me to help sift through stuff? I like sifting through stuff, or I liked sorting," is what they said. Ooh, the gender stuff. And see, the gender stuff is funny because I have a hard time, especially with the gender neutral stuff. But I myself consider myself gender neutral. It's just that growing up, I wouldn't have known that word for it. I wouldn't have known those terms for it. So I just said that I was not like one of the girls. I was not like typical girls. I said that a lot, and I still sometimes say it. But I am trying now to go by they, them pronouns and tell people sometimes that I go by they, them pronouns. But I also am not ready to open up to my husband about it or my mom and dad about it. So it's like this funny thing where I do it in certain places, but around my husband and my mom and dad, I'm not comfortable with opening up to them about it. But because frankly, because of the shit that they've done with my own kids who are trans and non-binary, that I like, they were not safe, and I know they weren't, and it is incredibly uncomfortable and incredibly awful. And now I don't feel safe myself opening up about it, which sucks. It sucks. Like, people need to get over themselves with this stuff. I understand. I mean, I'm doing it myself. I understand that getting the different names and the gender changes and stuff like that right can be difficult. I was better at it for a while when I was like really practicing it. I would look in a mirror and try to like have conversations where I would use it, especially the gender neutral one. Like, it was a lot easier for me to use male pronouns for my oldest kid, but using the gender neutral ones were more difficult. So I would practice in the mirror, I would practice when I was driving around in the car, and I got a lot better about it. And I don't know, it's like, since my husband has found out about that and has been not the greatest about it, and almost never uses the gender that they say or the names they say. Every now and then they will, but very rarely. It's like I'm getting too used to that, and then I end up messing up more and more. But part of me feels like it's just an excuse. Like, if I really wanted to do it, then I would just do what I did before, practice until I get it in line again. But I think before, my husband did not know about it. And so it was like you would react one way while he's around and another way while he's not. But doesn't matter. It sucks. And I don't know why it's so hard. But I think also there are so many people that I do see that I just make assumptions based on what they look like, which everybody does. Everybody makes assumptions based on what people look like. And so that may be part of the problem. Anyway, I'm going on too much. Okay, so VIP. When they are trying to figure out who Chomp was, the person in the crocodile theme park that was dressed in the crocodile suit, and they pick up Al, and they go through the evidence they have, and then he clarifies what happened. And they start like breaking down, why were you there? Why was this happening? Why were you dragging this dead guy? And he's like, no. He was not dead. He was drunk off of his ass. I was trying to help him because he had lost control of his faculties. And then they were talking about the fact that oil was leaking from his faulty boat, which was found on the river where these bodies had been deposited. These body parts had been deposited, and he's like, if I was going to kill somebody and feed his parts to the crocodiles, I know enough that I would not be doing it right now, because I would not be doing it at these crocodile feeding holes, because they just freaking released a bunch of freaking fish for this festival. And the crocs are freaking full up on fish. They're not going to be fucking interested in a goddamn dead body part. Like, they're like, and he said something like, they're not that smart, but they have fucking taste. Like, they're not going to want fucking to eat off dead body parts when they got plenty of fresh fish going in there. So I really liked that he really clarified things, and he really made it, he's like, look, I do know the area very well. I do know that if you know what you're doing, you're not going to be doing this stuff. So I'm thinking it's somebody who does not realize that these crocs are not going to be eating it. They think the crocs are going to be eating it, so they're not intelligent enough to understand that, and they're dropping them off. And he's like, look, they haven't eaten any of the parts, have they? And he's not part of the case, so he doesn't know about it. So they're like, oh yeah, really, they, like, all these limbs are intact. They have not been eaten. The flesh has not gone off of them. So Al's right. And so yeah, that was my VIP, because he really clarified a lot of shit, answered a lot of questions that really clears things up to me in a way that needed to be cleared up, and that I wouldn't have even thought about. Like, I probably should have. These limbs are all showing up in crocodiles' eating holes. Some of them showing up in the crocodiles' mouths, yet they're not actually eaten, not actually chewed up. So it's got to be something with that. And I think I remember, like, briefly thinking about, that's weird that this whole body part was in this one croc's mouth, yet it hadn't eaten any of it. Like, it didn't look like it was really chewed up or anything. But I only thought about it for a little bit, and then I didn't think about it anymore after that. So yeah, he cleared things up. The piece of shit. God, I was very disappointed. I'm not going to say piece of shit, but I was very disappointed when Eddie kept going on about all the awful shit that her dad was doing. And Dulcie kept blowing it off. And I understand she is focusing on this investigation, and she wants to get this investigation taken care of. And she's also been chewed out already for Eddie not following protocol. I get that. I do. But, like, some of the stuff that Eddie is finding with her dad's situation just sounds too interconnected and too related to what's going on with their investigation to just blow it off. So I was disappointed that Dulcie kept yelling at her about it and insisting that they don't do anything with that she stopped doing. Like, I get it to an extent, but at the same time, I'm like, maybe you should at least take down the information and see if there's any connection there, because some of it seems too interrelated, and I don't like the idea of taking stuff that sounds interrelated and just completely blowing it off because it's not super connected to not directly connected to your investigation. Because sometimes you look back through the information and you find out those not so connected things are actually very connected, and yeah. Anyway, piece of shit for the for the episode, for the piece of shit for the episode. Those two interns or whatever it is, the forensic co-workers that are working with Abby, those two pissed me off. They're fucking leaving her stranded day after day, barely ever checking on her, definitely not answering her freaking texts or calls or anything, and leaving her without a ride. And then when she like, I get she was upset, and maybe you thought that her response was rude because you asked if she needed a ride, and she's like, of course I do, I don't have a fucking car. Like, it was a reasonable response when she'd been left fucking stranded for hours in fucking crocodile infested, like, near crocodile infested waters. Like, what the hell? So yeah, I was very, very upset about that crap. That fucking, oh my god. Just leaving her like that, and then after she tells them, yes, of course I need a ride, and she responds in what they consider a rude way, they just turn around and fucking take off without her to a place that is a freaking considerable drive away when she doesn't have a ride. That stuff, that ticked me off. Those were my pieces of shit for the episode. Abby's forensic co-workers. Anyway, I know I went off on some tangents, and I have a hard time with my handwriting. I have 2 pages here, but it's technically 1.5 pages. So I could have spread my handwriting out more so that it was easier to read, so I didn't have to squish lines together like I did, and had the 1.5 pages just expanded to 2 pages, and it would have been just fine. But no, I put all of my gist and all of the information about what went on in the episode on 1 page, and it's a small little index card thing. And then I put the favorite and worst favorite, VIP, and piece of shit on like half of the other side, the side that has lines, which I prefer lines too. My handwriting is atrocious, and I also have a hard time tracking things. I mean, it's part of the reason that I have a hard time reading quickly. I lose track of stuff. So I have a hard time tracking stuff. I have a hard time keeping things lined up. So I really need lines there to kind of keep things lined up. So yeah. Anyway, I think that's enough for now. That's all I got for you this week. I will see you next week, next Sunday, for episode 4.